Goodbye, Benji. I love you. Welcome. Kenzie, thank you for being here. Tom, good morning. Emily, good to see you. And I do. This week, we embrace the flowering. The earth is beginning the process of budding into a new flower. In many ways, you can understand the big circle, the big cycle, guided by the precession of the equinoxes in rhythm and harmony with the center of the galaxy. As a flowering, this is a flowering and a dying back. A long spring, summer, fall, and winter. We are entering the new flowering. As we do, it's up to us what we choose to identify with. And thus, we are embodied in different parts of the greater body of the world. We can languish off in the corner underneath the mulch at the edge of a root, or we can be central to the joyful birth of color. This ends up being practical. Truly, one of the most extraordinary and wonderful gifts of the kind of mind you need to become is this easy translation between macro and micro, big picture and little picture. I invite you not to identify too much as one or the other. People have a tendency of staying in comfort zones, like thinking about big things. Maybe you do. Well, also, think about what's present right around you. You like being aware of your home and your closest friends, and you don't really pay attention to global news. Well, I invite you to learn to navigate between these themes because they are part of the same thing. Life is fractal. Reality is and will always be fractal, which means the same patterns that are present on a small level are present on a big level. You've seen patterns of atoms related to patterns of a galaxy. They operate on some of the same physics and dynamics that end up being dance. There is a dance of life that allows you to understand a flower in the same way we understand the earth, in the same way you understand yourself. And as you embody the rhythms that the earth is going through within yourself, you can dance and flower as she does, in the same kind of stories present on a level that's for you. This gift, this invitation is present now. This is one expression of it here that we share together. Today, we share one piece of a Gaian joke. Gaia is funny. In order to understand her humor, you really need to treat her as a being. She has a personality, all right? And it is more accessible for you to consider thusly. If you were to decide to stay put around a star for several billion years, you would have to create a little bit of a plan for what you do. In fact, you'd have to work with the sun in order to discern, like, is this something the sun would like to support? Well, let's call it more like a plan et, really. And when you present this kind of plan et to the star that you're thinking of working with, the star is very aware that the heat, the furnace, the enlivening power comes from the center out towards these different planets. And then you stay, and you stay, and you stay. It's not the kind of thing you could just get out of easily. Once you make a commitment of this sort, you are present for huge arcs of time in relationship to what you and I know of as reality. That's it. And in this, Gaia suggested a garden party. She suggested that she would like to host garden parties. And in her garden parties, she will periodically invite beings from many other stars to come and visit and be present in her party. And her party is going to change year to year. Every year, she has a new theme of what the garden is like, emphasizing certain colors, emphasizing certain kinds of ways of being together, ecosystems of spiritual reality. Sometimes it's colder, sometimes it's warmer. Sometimes the colder plants make evergreen forests, and she invites us to a gathering in the evergreens with the snowfall, and thus fires are emphasized and warmth. Sometimes the gatherings emphasize jungles. Sometimes they emphasize the plains. She teaches us to dig holes with two pits, one with a tunnel in between to vent. Then you can build a fire in the bigger hole, and there's a vent and a feeding of oxygen that keeps the fire lit and safe from the breeze. You learn specific skills to thrive during the different times. All of human history is one party. One. All of human history is one party. It's one flowering from her perspective. And in this flowering, there's a particular tone, there's a particular style, there's a particular focus. And she's invited many different beings to fit into this focus in a variety of ways. And she makes many different opportunities. There are many different gathering spaces within this garden. There's a chill space, there's a dead space, there's a swimming space, there's a rejuvenating space, there's a space to eat. All these different ways of being reflect different cultures on the earth. She made these. She made the different skin tones: yellow, red, brown, pink. She made us in these rainbow colors. She made the bodies. She made the idea of the bodies and invited us into them. And into each broad culture, she invested a purpose. And this purpose is harmonic, it's musical. And the music of every culture correlates to the colors of our skin. It does. And in the color of the skin is invested harmonies and rhythms. And in these harmonies and rhythms are languages. And around these harmonies and rhythms are dances. And within these dances and languages, we create cultures. And the cultures are comprised of beings from multiple directions, forged into something we get to share. So unbeknownst to you, perhaps, the beings who grew up speaking the same language as you, even those in your neighborhood who you knew, and maybe still know as people like you, maybe from many different places. And some of them aren't. Some beings come in here as a group and they incarnate in a village in one culture, and then they incarnate in a village in another culture, and then they incarnate in a village as another culture altogether. And together they learn lessons in one way and in another and another. And all of this timing leads to now, when the big flowering occurs. See, many of us have been invited to prepare for the big flowering, and many of us have been invited to stay. And many more people than that were invited for a different purpose. Come and take a shit. Yep, really. Come and take what you have that you don't want and leave it in a pile, a compost pile. We are terraforming the desert. It starts this way. How do you terraform a desert? There's only one real way. You have to make new soil. One of the best ways to make new soil is you find anything that grows on the edge of the desert, and then you raise animals there. And you raise them to eat what's growing, but not all of it, enough that it can keep growing. And then they poop, and they leave their poop, and it creates new soil. And if you get the balance right, it grows. That's what we're doing. It's what we've always been doing. It's what we've always been doing. And so it's like, create a life, plow it, create a life, plow it, create a life, plow it, give it back, give it back, give it back. And over time, the soils grow. And as the soils grow, there's a possibility of growing new kinds of plants in these soils. They're no longer desert ecosystems. They no longer emphasize strictly retaining water over extraordinary periods of time. The variety expands and the interplay gets deeper and deeper. That's ice. We are the flowers in this garden in so many ways on a small scale. We are the thriving plants. And the ways of life that we can live change over time, because when there's an abundance of love and presence and creative inspiration, we can live in a very different way than if we have to be more like cacti, retaining every little drop of Gaian blood and holding it for as long as possible, lest we starve and die. We're transitioning from a spiritual desert into a spiritual thriving garden. And as we do, the invitation is not something that is received by everyone. In fact, many have no intention whatsoever of being a part of these, even in this lifetime. They're just here to leave. They're here to check out. They're on autopilot. They've gone numb. And every bit of effort we put into bringing them to life, to inviting them into the garden, you have to be aware. You have to be aware. So here's the joke. When you live, when you exist in a space without a planet, you're in communion, common union with other beings. In this common union, there has to be some kind of base agreement for how to make music. When you put a bunch of musicians in a room with instruments, even if they share zero intention to be in harmony, if all the instruments are tuned differently, it's gonna sound terrible. Where does that harmony come from? Well, over time, people share agreements that they stay with. And that amounts to vibrational attunement, alignment. If you suddenly put yourself with an entirely different way of being, contrast. You have to say, I will learn your way or you will learn my way. Well, Two beings can do this at once. Okay, that's relatively straightforward. But how do you do it when there's like 20 or 100 different ways of being coming together as one? What Gaia has done is create a crossroads. And this is in many ways more important than anything else. For many of the beings who have come here, one part of the purpose was to relieve themselves. Another part is to be present in a crossroads and connect with many other ways of being. So I can say, hey, what are the Pleiades like? And you can say, hey, tell me about Sirius. Hey, have you visited Alpha Centauri? It's right over there. What's up? Wow. Have you gone out the arm of this galaxy? I'd like to know. Believe it or not, you cannot share in-depth conversations about these things unless you agree on the harmony. What is your attunement? How do you play music together? Because spiritual reality is about the music of the vibrations that you share. And every star has different unique rhythms and vibrations. Think about this. The Earth rotates at a particular speed. It goes around the sun at a particular rate. As it does, it's pointing away from the center of the galaxy and towards the center of the galaxy. Away from the center, it's closer to the center of the galaxy and further away. This is relevant. As we do this, we're also spinning, so we have a pace to our night and day. What else? What else? The moon. The moon goes around at a particular pace, at a particular rate. This influences us. These are dramatic influences that shape the foundation of our reality. Every star and every planet that you live around has different rhythms, different modes of attunement. You can't just put yourself on every single one all at once because you go bonkers. It's like changing all those knobs on the guitar constantly. You have to make choices. I will now attune to this. When you do, you want to clear the deck. You want to be able to listen to this. So when you ask another being, what's it like in the Pleiades, you need to be able to set down your attunement. You're not just getting words in response, you're getting experience. You're getting a spiritual reflection of the kind of song that is sung there. What Gaia has done is make a little planet with a garden party. And in this garden party, we get the opportunity to share something in common. She has created the common denominator of herself. And within this, we get to talk to everybody. We get to have these engagements. Some beings come here and they have a very specific purpose. I'm going from the Pleiades to Sirius, teach me how. That's it. They ignore everything else. They know what their intention is ahead of time. You get how this can work. It's a transitional zone. You shift frequency from one place to another. And a lot of this is so purposeful that it's just like, there isn't much intention to be here. Now, we're still trying to zero in on the funny part. What's with this stuff? What's with this? Technology? For real? What is it? See, spiritually, it's really easy to just be next to another being and blend. It's actually too easy. It's too easy. Telepathy isn't a superpower that you add on top of an extraordinary life. It's normal. In fact, it's an expression of the blending of consciousness. It didn't start in English. You weren't talking English before. The blending of consciousness allows you to be so present with another being that it's like too easy. This does not facilitate connection. This prevents it. This prevents connection. This computer prevents connection. You want to know how? When I turn this live feed off, it's off. You won't be as connected to me. And I get to say no. When you receive a message, you don't have to read it right away. So a huge part of the joke is that what we are doing right now as we introduce these enhanced abilities to connect to our lives is we are actually remembering what it was like to be able to connect so easily. And in the process of remembering, these are the breaks. They look like the gas pedal to you. They look like the thing that makes it possible. Actually, they're the thing that calms it down. Allow me to explain in a little bit after I say hi. Janie, thank you for being here. Erica, Emilda, welcome. Haldy, so glad to have you here. It is. It's beautiful. Misty, so good to see you. This has been quite a week. My family's going through a radical change. My kids they've transitioned to sleeping in the same room, and the energy's through the roof. We all need it, but they're going bonkers. And the past day has been so much better. It's like we're settling in. The other day, my son asked us to learn. He's been learning hot cross buns on the whistle. He's 6. And so my wife picked it up on the violin and I picked it up on the guitar and we played it all together. And he has an extraordinary ability to like do something and then move on. And I'm like, sort of like, I drag it out too much. I'm like, if we're going to play one song, I want to play 5 songs. And if we don't get to 5 songs, then I'm a little sad that it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. It's, it's a maturity I've got to do. He's like, we did that. Now we know we did that. We did that this week. We also played it together. And the prospect of having a family band where like my kids get good at instruments means so much to me. To me, this is like the core of life. I want to be able to have dinner, clean up, and then make music normally, like a normal thing. And it's hard to get back into that. There are so many pressures in the world. It could seem easier to turn on the computer or whatever and watch some TV. And yet, when you look at life from the perspective of not being on Earth, I assure you the technology doesn't do shit. It doesn't do anything to you. You're not out in space contemplating living on Earth going, wow, I'm so excited for an iPhone. No, you're excited for the violin. You're excited for the guitar and to go swimming. From the perspective of a cosmic spirit, your most inspirational moments, the way we decided to be here, when we were thinking of being here, to be here, for all those of us who wanted this experience, who extended it, we're here for many, many lifetimes, we're invested with Gaia. We're part of the plan. We volunteer. We say, what do you want us to do? This kind of energy. Our original intentions were to smell the flowers, to eat the fruit, to swim in the water, to play the instruments. So getting ourselves to stay in this awareness is actually about being in tune with our soul, the part of ourselves that didn't originally live here, because it's our soul that knows what matters and what doesn't. My son and I just invented 2 new acro yoga poses, and his mind's getting into this. He did a circus class, and I've been a little sad that he doesn't want to go back to it. But the other night, for the 5th time, I encouraged him to do it again, and he said, "No, Daddy, I don't want to." And I said, "Why, Benji?" And he said, "Well, they don't do the things I want to do the most." I was like, "Oh." And so I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do most?" He goes, "Forward rolls and acrobatics." I'm like, okay. Well, what do you want to do? We invented 2 new things. He literally got up, so his hands were on my hands and his feet were on my feet. And he was up in the air like that. I was on my back and he was way up in the air. And he thought of it, and then we did it and it worked. And then he said he wanted to learn to stand on my hands. So I said, "Look at this. Stand on my hands and hold my head." And he practiced. And I said, "Now put more pressure on my hands, less on my head." And he practiced drawing himself into his core and holding himself right here. These are the things you can't do anywhere else. You can never be in a human body on Saturn doing this. Cherishing the unique opportunities here while we're here is why we're here. And in the process of tuning into these dreams, these prayers, there's been so much energy in my family that it's been chaos. My son hasn't known how to stop. He gets very excited and very hyper. And it's a very clear presencing to me of why people so often don't go for more, because it's overwhelming and confusing. And akin to learning how to drive a car. If you have a gas pedal, but you don't know how to stop, you stop by crashing into things. If you don't know how to turn, you bump into the sides of stuff. And it's an untenable way to live. Energetically, we do these. Many, many people do these. We enliven to the point where it hurts. And the hurting is akin to crashing in order to stop or bouncing into the walls in order to turn. And there are just two real choices. Is that going to be a moment that you identify in your mind as, this is why I shouldn't do that? Or is it going to be a moment where you say, I'd like to learn to slow down before I crash? Now, I say this very practically. Relate this to yourself. In what ways do you retain memories of pain, of painful moments in relationships or communities, where the way you retain your memory is essentially saying, don't make me strong. Don't make me this powerful. When I get this powerful, I get hurt. I hurt other people. I crash into them. I did. See, I have proof that that's what happened. Are you doing this? Now, this works with intimacy. When we get closer to other beings, we learn them, we know them. All of you have some level of affinity with the magic of being empathically connected. And when we are connected in such a way, we share some of the thoughts. We're thinking together. It's already happening. This is happening with people you love, irrespective of distance, perhaps. We're thinking together under the false premise that we're thinking by ourselves. And so they have an idea at a similar time than I have an idea. The challenge of this is not making it possible. The challenge of this is calming it down. And this is how. When you get a message and you're talking to someone else, do you look at your phone? Why? The discipline starts here. This is Psychic Skills 101. Say no. If you can't pause things, you can't function. Because it's one thing to blend with another, just one other, like a partner or a best friend. But it's another to blend with two. As soon as you put two people into the mix, it starts to get confusing. You start to have triangulations and confusions about priority and attunement. This and this computer thing, that's what they're doing. We're reaching out to each other. Everybody who watches these week after week, any of you who have been here for half a year, this is a fairly strong part of your life. It might occupy a very clear space in your heart. And not only am I grateful and honored that you do that, I'm very aware of the practicalities involved. You need to be able to say no. And the good news is you can. You could stop this. You can step away. You know, the recording will be here. That's important. Nothing is so good that you want unlimited amounts. I mean, oxygen. If you breathe pure oxygen all the time, you die. None of the things that we need are indefinitely good. Too much light, you get burned. Too much cold, you freeze. Too much heat, you boil. Too much music, you can't get anything else in your head. Too much night, you miss the light. All of these things are about balances. And so is intimacy. As we learn to connect with more beings, you want to be able to say, hello, I embrace you, I love you, I cherish you, I'm in tune with you, I share with you. I need to rest. And people don't always want to need to rest at the same time. So it's important to create mechanisms that allow us to make these choices together. Step, step, step. And the little pieces of maturing that we do in these ways puts us in a position where, lo and behold, you are now able to be telepathic. Really. That's what we're learning. And you're learning it by saying yes and no, and yes and no, and yes and no, and yes and no, until you fully trust that you can say yes, because you know you will be able to say no when you need to. I remember the moment I first sort of crossed over with this, more than 20 years ago. It was a devastating phase of my life. I was getting so excited to learn the foundations of many of these things. The primary part was that I was transitioning from a world in which I thought like different philosophies on life were different. Capitalism and communism and Christianity and like all the many different things that you could sort of focus your life on, being a businessman, being a monk, being a revolutionary, being all these things. I went through college in a world where these were all different options. And my mind started to grasp this macro vision where I'm like, these are all interrelated. They're playing a role in a bigger world where none of them could take over. This is like saying everything's blue. A rainbow can't be all blue or it's not a rainbow. We live in this rainbow of possibilities, but all the colors are fighting. The colors are saying blue's better than red, red's better than yellow. It's absurd. And as my mind got into this point, I was sharing online. And like 5 times in a row, I shared at the same moment another guy shared. And on the 5th time, I heard him in my mind before we posted. Now, that might not sound dramatic to you. Maybe this is a normal thing for you. It happens to me all the time now. But when I was first learning that this was possible, I was like, and it broke a cap and my mind exploded. When we cross these thresholds, it makes a big difference. And you don't have to do it. You don't have to cross these thresholds. You don't have to live in a greater depth. But the world is hurting us deeper. Now, people still can insist that they don't want to participate, and they will be sort of brushed off to the side. But the more you emphasize again and again saying, I want this, I want to be a vibrant part of this, I want to be at the heart of this, I want this to be core to my life, I want to help, I want to serve, I want to thrive day to day, I want to look forward to the end of my years, the last 2 decades, being good. I want to feel healthy. I want to love walks more than. I want to still be singing. I want to eat in balance, cherishing each piece of food I consume and not eating when I don't need to. I want to love more deeply. I want to be present for people in a way that enhances your lives. I want to be good at it. I want to be efficient. I want to be able to take my space when I need it. I want to spend 2 hours. 2 hours sitting in a chair watching the sunset and the stars come out. And I want to do it often. When you say these things, Gaia says, I like that one. And when you say it again and you say it again, she starts to give you more. And at a certain point, you transition where you're more fed by what she's seeing in you, because she's seeing the truth of your prayers. The truth of your prayers are present for you. And you make them loud enough, and along the way, she's going to be like, I'm not sure. Do you really want that? If you do that, you might not be able to go on that vacation with your high school friends every year. They don't really want these things. Choices have impacts that you can't always measure. And sometimes we're praying for contradictory things without realizing we're praying for contradictory things. And this needs to scare you, because there are certain depths that she won't let you occupy unless you burn your bridges. Now, the good news is you don't always get to know which bridges to burn. So don't go actively arsoning everything. You just have to be willing. And typically your willingness means stay focused. Stay focused on what you really love. And even notice when it scares you. It's not a bad sign if it scares you. You need to have some relationship to being afraid of your true dreams. If you're not feeling it as deeply as it can be felt. Now, make no mistake, that doesn't mean give up, but it does mean, oh, this just got real. This just got real. You need to have that feeling and pause, because you might love to drive. You got to have a sense of when's too fast. I have gone on some speed trips in my life. I've been on phases where I really like speed, push some of it in a car. I once spent hours driving dirt roads after a rainstorm in Arizona. And it was absurd. It was a ridiculously silly thing to do because the roads were pure dirt and it was mud everywhere. And I was going fast. And I just got into a zone where I was like sliding down hills. And if I'd slipped off the edge, I was borrowing a car. If I'd slipped off the edge into that ditch, I was 20 miles from help. 10 at least. And I didn't have cell phone then. To be present in that zone was about deep balance, an awareness of momentum. You know, you can't slam on the brakes in the snow because if you slam on them, you'll actually slide like an ice skater. You have to pump them to change the momentum that slows you down. This is true of spiritual growth as well. You can't just, I want it, I want it, I want it, more. Too much. That's crashing. 3 of you here right now have done this big time. I can feel it. You've prayed too much. You were being held down by baggage you didn't correctly identify. You thought the way to change it was to scream more, now, I want it. And then it worked. You broke free of your baggage. You went shooting like a rocket ship attached to a car. You crashed into a lot of stuff and you go, oh man, that sucked. That was my manic episode. Get your mind in there. There are mechanics to what happened. And it's this commitment. When you crash, do you commit to becoming a better driver or do you say, no? Now, bear in mind, I don't drive. I do not drive cars. I don't drive cars. I correctly accepted that I just don't see clearly enough. There were too many times when there were blind spots and it was just close call after close call. When I was young, I did crash too much and I learned and I got decent. I learned to drive in New York City. I learned to be quick and on it. But as I got older into my 30s, my eyesight got worse and there were too many close calls. In the big picture of spiritual life, there are many realms you can occupy, and you do need caution. And you even need to be the one who is most present to say, that's not for me. There's no shame in that. I can trust this more and more as I get older. I said no to things that I really genuinely am not very good at. And there's strong reason to believe that it's not worth it. There's no shame in saying some things aren't worth it. But I promise you, there is a big world that is worth it, that is worth waking up into. And many, many people say no to entering this because it is so scary, because it is delicate, because the gas pedal works too easily. You don't need to scream more, now, more. You don't. You just need to sing, I would love this to work. Then sing it again in an hour. And you build this momentum, and it's the difference between dragging a car over a gravel road by hand or pushing a hockey puck on the ice. True psychic power ends up being easy. So easy that you're very conscious that it just takes this much to make it work and then let it be. So today, we're going to bridge this gap. I don't need to do much to get in touch with Thoth. But part of that is because I just don't try when it's not time. And I don't bemoan it. I know it's here. He has for a while invited me to do these, to answer questions for others. And I haven't wanted the pressure. I particularly, I do clamp sometimes. And there are instances when it can be confusing for me to discern between who I am and who he is. So my own insecurities can get in the way, particularly when someone's doubtful and they're asking me gotcha questions. It can make me tense and nervous. But overall, I'm pretty good at it. That's enough. So today I'm open up to be a channel. I'll say we when necessary. It's a communion. I connect to his spirit and then answer questions for you. Bless you guys. Questions? Any questions? I commune and I answer. Let those who have ears hear. All right. Okay. Well, why don't we start with hers? So what questions does Sarah have? No. There is purpose to these definitions. It's helpful to say angel, but there's an intentional. So I'm going to stay in communion, but I do know this answer already. Angel is a particular pun on the word angle. Angle ends up delineating color. So the original Judeo-Christian angels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, hold different angles on purpose. And they're there intentionally occupying frequencies that help us find them. Thoth has incarnated on multiple occasions and changes frequency. So he's not functioning in the same way. I find him through particular angles of energy, but that's not exactly what he's doing. I do refer to him as an angel often, generically. I guess he's encouraging me to de-emphasize that. Angels hold a particular energy in a consistent way for you. So they are there, but it's from a human perspective, that's what an angel is. From an angelic perspective, this is a spirit who signed up to do this. It's like their job to hold this space. And they're singing a consistent song energetically so you can find them and be present with them. They know that's not who they are. But many humans won't learn that in an entire lifetime because it's so necessary to connect in this way. And this facilitates opening energetically beyond the veil in a controlled way. So you could connect and be open to a particular angel angle and not be open to all the others. Thus, you expand yourself spiritually without being overwhelmed. That's why it's so important to embrace them in this way. Thoth took me beyond the veils in a way that was like, I had to learn to change and change again and change again and change again. It's a little daunting. That's enough. Thank you. So I'm staying in communion. I'm excited for this because I might learn something that I don't know. Think of Lemuria as 2 flowerings ago. Atlantis is 1 flowering ago. It's just a cycle. It was just intentionally a cycle. The cycles of Earth flower and then die back. In most ways, it's that simple. Some beings participate in an entire cycle, an entire flowering, and commit to being a part of the next one. And those beings, of those beings, Thoth is a core leader. We committed to seeding the healthiest and most intentional ways of life into the different cultures across the globe. And this is an incubation phase, his story. The beings from Atlantis who decided to carry through into this cycle are invested in staying for the next one. There were Lemurians present who invested and stayed through a transition then that led into Atlantis, seeding Atlantis, or what was the heart of the culture that became Atlantis, existing in a prehistorical, his story. There's always a balance of gender and there's always a lot of uniqueness. Gender is simply polarization. So you polarize different forces, and by agreeing to occupy certain gender extremes, you then create the opportunity to reunify and yet stay unique. So each pole, the male and the female, unique to Earth and unique to each timeline, exist at different frequencies. You incarnate, you center, and then you unify, and then you return to center. And this pulsation creates the foundation for the reality that is the timeline involved. So he's saying Lemuria lost something they needed before their end, and that's why it was considered tragic. None of these timelines are all. These timelines are not purely definitive. They don't always work in the ways that are hoped to work. If challenges were not attempted that have some degree of potential to fail or go awry, they wouldn't exist at the edge of possibility in a manner that many spirits depend upon. The joy of living at the edge of what is possible is invested in what is possible itself. It is like riding a wave. You can either do it or not. And yet, as you ride it, you may fall. If you want something more definitive that you can depend upon occurring in exactly the way you anticipate, you can't be at that edge. Lemuria did lose something they wanted. And they're still here in a very real way, present in another frequency of vibration. The transition from being centered in one frequency range into another is part of a commitment to Earth. This commitment is fun. It is joyful to embrace the challenge to shift from one way of being into another. It's like the dying off of the mammoth. Those who incarnate as mammoths can leave or choose to incarnate in another way. In a similar analogy, those who have been incarnated in a previous cycle can choose to stay. Staying necessitates learning a wide range of ways of being, which depends upon multiple incarnations in multiple forms. If you are restricted to a certain tight range of incarnations, you are restricted in a broader range of what you can possibly embody and even comprehend. And the ultimate gift of the beauty you are able to participate in creating depends upon your investment. I committed to being here through the worst with the worst. I committed to being next to the greatest failures in order to help delineate what is and is not acceptable. Ultimately, this involves living from a perspective that allows me to be present with those who have failed and remind them that this is not all they are. One of the deepest sadnesses in such a cycle is that the entire commitment of a spirit to what they are doing involves feeling great depths of tragedy upon certain kind of failures. At these moments of tragedy, it is necessary to remind each spirit that they are something more. And in such moments, many commit to participating in healing on far more extreme levels. That's what he's basically telling me. That's what I did. Enough about that for now. Sometimes doing nothing is more effective than doing the wrong thing. Until you believe that, you won't see the true path that is best for you. That's all he has to say. That's for Imelda. Whew. The most accurate analogy would be to consider them something akin to blood vessels. They feed different areas of the world, and each of these areas have fundamental importance. It is a good idea not to overestimate your ability to understand these things immediately. Simply trust that by becoming more aware of the power of these lines, you can feed yourself and find your way to where you are most suited to be. In addition, tremendous upswings in energetic attunement travel along these paths, dance. And so waves of intense infusion dance around the earth, navigating the pathways that are already present and yet bringing much more life force along the channels that already exist. These channels flush a tremendous range of forces, enforcing a transformation, which in many cases is not fully desired from all the beings there. The earth is making pragmatic choices to push transformation and to restrain it in equal measure, allowing some to move from one location to another, to be out of the more intense waves when they are not desired, and to gravitate towards places where the swings light the world when you are set to be a part of it. That's it. Why? There would be no point. The body is already transforming as it is. You will carry with you the potential to recreate your body in various forms. It is the pattern of your experience of yourself in this body that is most important, and you do carry that. Overemphasizing moving the physical body in its current state is irrational. As you gain the ability to transition between forms, you become something that was once normal to you. In the process of incarnating in a body for such extended periods of time, you are expanding your ability to incarnate in a new form. Your commitment to do this exclusively during the waking hours of your life imprints this ability within your experience, and you will carry this with you. That's it. So this is not a grounded perspective from which to understand what is happening. It has been necessary to start over. When you start over, you focus your understanding of reality through the exclusive relationship to the perceptions of the human body. Until you live in a way that is gracious and adept within these restrictions, it is not wise to add a further range of sensation. As you master living in the body as you have known it, you attune to a healthy way to be aware in a broader range of sensations. That's it. It is important to understand the ranges within which you live. There are many limits that are wise to accept as they are. There is no purpose in fighting or struggling or wishing to transcend them. As you accept the edge of heat that is healthy for your body and the edge of cold that is healthy for your body, you can experience joy within these ranges. There is some benefit at learning to visit the extremes in order to maintain perspective. There is some benefit in choosing preferences of the temperatures that you like to exist within on a normal basis. Overall, it is most beneficial not to struggle against the limits. The energies that matter most for you to attune with function like rays from the center of the earth to the edge of the earth. They change dramatically in between, but isolating yourself as existing along one of these rays helps you to conceptualize yourself. There is a high and there is a low to the frequencies that exist within this. And embracing it allows you to distance yourself from external stimuli enough to recenter. As you learn to know reality in this way, you learn to make sense of the felt sense of frequency vibrations. Thus, in trusting that you can return to a vertical ray from your root to your crown, and attuning with the rays that are of the earth herself, now you can allow yourself to feel and blend and meld in a variety of ways by focusing your attention on shared stimuli that depart from these vertical rays. However, this would be tremendously disadvantageous if you were to emphasize it and forget how to return to yourself. It is essentially your trunk, your tree, and your root system remind you of who you are, and the ability to embrace this as yourself beyond the confines of your days and nights allows you to extend yourself more deeply with those you may meet. The more you are rooted, the more you can let go and return to yourself. He's suggesting that that's not really what you wanted to learn, but that's what he wants to tell you. The most critical factors that are happening in this moment are he's showing me images of the planets. It's astrological. There's an alignment for the whole solar system that's affecting everything here. Understand that we live in a giant bubble. Within this bubble, there are critical energetic alignments that affect everything. Gaia makes decisions to bring life into a flowering, and transformations within this flowering occur in rhythm with the greater forces around us, in harmony with the sun. This awakens energies and calms them down in rhythms that are definitely shared. Personal challenges rise to the surface during these transitions. We all get times to rest. We all are challenged to come to life in similar harmonies. Some in direct resistance to the forces that are like the weather of the world will fall. They will be confronted by the edge of what they are capable of embracing in a manner that is not pleasant. Their choice to resist this change is what makes them an individual. And some cling to their identity by resisting the weather of the world. This is not an abject surrender. You cannot stay afloat if you simply let yourself be moved by the forces, but by agreeing to work with them, you learn to embody the resistance as a force that moves you forward. And you learn to embrace the core of the dreams that you've held in the past and understand how the weather of the world is driving you into the depth of power necessary to create them. Sometimes you may pray for one thing to occur in your life, for one experience to be something you can embody, without understanding that it is necessary that you enliven yourself to a certain exact depth of power in order to manage the consequences of the dream that you yourself have put into process. The energy necessary to challenge you to embrace this is a shared energy. It functions at certain shared levels of intensity. You cannot negotiate with the wind and the power of its gusts. You must learn to maintain the strength to move with its pressure. And if you break at certain extremes, you may no longer put yourself in the fields that contain this kind of wind. Unbeknownst to you, many of your dreams only grow in certain fields of energy. The density of energetic presence that is always necessary to embody in these places has absolute limits. You must agree to be pushed to the levels of strength necessary to thrive in these spaces in order to continue. Thus, when the challenges come in, recommit yourself to becoming the person that you need to be to live in this way. Allow it to drive you beyond the limits of what you thought was possible. Do not attempt to control the critical factors in these moments. Begin with the willingness to ride the winds. That's enough. So, Emily, in many ways, I think the last question answers it. That's basically what he's saying. The last answer answers your question. It's not about turning up your life force. It's about putting yourself in a position where the wind is. So if you're not in a place where the wind blows with that kind of strength, you have to join the weather of the world. You have to join an environment where the intensities move in that way. And if that is not possible, perhaps you're out of tune with what you actually need. Sometimes people pray for the power to turn things up in order to distract ourselves from the pain that is present within. So another thing to do is, if you don't seem to have the ability to move around, both energetically or physically, then it could be a good time to take honest reflection on yourself and say, is there anything in you that you're just avoiding, bypassing? Sometimes people seek intensity to avoid pain or trauma that's too loud. And that is an understandable reaction, but it's not ultimately healthy. It's okay to want to windsurf in order to give yourself a sense of presence and power in this body right now. But if that's the only way you have to avoid your trauma, it becomes an addiction in a dysfunctional way. Yes, the full moon functions as a normal metronome of this cycle. So it gives us an ability to extend out of the weather currents of the ley lines and different physical environments, and to share this up, down swing in the month. And by sharing that, there's a heightened energy and there's a diminished energy, and a heightened energy and a diminished energy. And the more you pay attention to this influence, the more you cleanse yourself, the more you attune to naturally being present with whatever you avoid. Women often process energy for their family and community by carrying the things that a family creates that don't work. And thus, during the new moon, there's often a release of these possibilities. The shared investment that a family makes in something that didn't work needs to be composted. That happens during the new moon. And then the full moon will bring an intense energy in and say, push it, try for it, go for it. It will help you highlight, like the brightest light in the darkness, showing you what you do want to still bring to life. And so it's a time to go with it, ride with it, invest in it. And if you dance with this ongoing rhythm by being consistently aware of where the moon is and when the cycles wax and wane, at least tell us who's first. Tell us, where's the moon in its cycle right now? Tell us. Who knows? Stay aware. Know where it is, and begin to pay attention to how this force affects you. It's one of the basic ways to learn about how we are being influenced by cosmic energy. All right. I can't follow what's past, but new questions. Slowing down. 2 or 3 more. And then I'm going to need to breathe. And then I can still do some readings, and they're going to be good today. He says, no. It is crucial that we commit to cycles of incarnation that keep them in relative balance. Thus, if you commit to a deep presence with the fire, you do need to experience water. It's okay to have preferences, but it is not possible to embody in any one of these elements with a deep commitment to what it is and how it participates in the life force of the earth without having some degree of investment and appreciation for the others. They exist in relation to each other. Hot is nothing without cold. Okay, so he does this shit to me. He's been telling me something that he hasn't fully. Basically, Wildflowerfire is a direct link to an ancient mystery school. We are supposed to link to knowledge and practice that existed a long time ago. And it's one unique mystery school. And it is a fire school. It's about transmuting some of the worst. That's why I was taught much of what I was taught first. I'm carrying a terror myself because in some ways I fear this depth of a commitment, just so you know. So speaking out loud makes it more real, but I'm also deeply fascinated by it. He says that's enough for now. All right. Another? Yes, bodies are made to last much longer. However, I strongly discourage you from overemphasizing finding the parameters of what's possible within this lifetime. The ability to extend a body's lifetime is highly functional in relationship to the greater patterns. Thus, when the dominant patterns of human behavior exist within modes that contain too much pain, it is disadvantageous to live in a body that lasts much longer than the ones do right now. It is better to emphasize cherishing every moment that you do live, embracing the health and vitality that are possible, and pray to reincarnate during an era when it makes sense to live for 700 years. This is not such a time. It contains mirror images of the patterns of behavior that were present during its birth. Is showing the hair like a birth. So it contains the presence of the life as it was lived when it grew at that length. Carrying it with you invests a degree of spiritual rootedness in the past. It draws strength from the continuity of your experience and is valuable as a way to maintain patterns. Cutting it facilitates transformation. Ultimately, it is a choice what to prioritize within your life, and it is valuable to maintain access to this choice. There's more. He's basically discouraging people from overemphasizing it. Just let it be a personal. It does. That's it. I feel like there's something else that needs, like, bring it. Come on, bring it. It's okay to doubt. Just no gotcha. You can doubt, like you can ask for something that addresses doubt. Just no gotcha questions. Like, Yeah, bring it. Come on. What do we wait? There's something. Who is it? Ask it. I feel it. I'm excited about it. There you go. That's it. And that's so basically, and he told me this as you typed it, Emily. Basically, he's saying they're denying their own right to reach me. So he wants me to emphasize to you that this is the dysfunction involved in working with someone like me. Now, it's just like every gas pedal needs an extreme. Like you want to know not to go, more than 120 miles per hour with that car. So, in terms of your work with me, in terms of your appreciation for me, understand that one limit that you should keep considering is ultimately, do you want to be able to talk with him directly? He makes it a like open, like, yeah, bring it. You can. It doesn't need to be a giant big deal. In fact, when it works, it's not a big deal. To you, it might feel like a big deal. For me, for years, it was the biggest deal ever. It was tears streaming down my face, days of, oh my God, oh. And I don't belittle it. It's awesome. But ultimately, that's a transition. And I want to welcome you into this concept that it's just normal, just like make it normal. You need to want that in order for it to be possible. And for some of you, it can be a soft activation where it's just gently wake up to, oh, yeah, I made a deal with you. It's good to see you. Good to feel you. Don't conceptualize me in your way as if I'm something that you have to directly pass or transcend. I have a unique and tight way of connecting with him. It's not the kind of thing that anyone else should directly emulate, but you should use it as a catalyst to believe that you can. And in many ways, you might keep your eyes open more brightly than me. I'm like this, yo. I like walk blindfolded into spaces that he leads me, and I'm like, all right, just that's really bright, dude. Like, just I focus in the amount of connection that I get so I can pass this much to you and learn as much as I do learn. But I back away frequently from learning more in a way that maybe you'd be better at. So be open to that possibility and return to this because I know how to chill it out and keep you focused again. I have a lot of experience on how to do this over the course of years. It's more like a guide. I know the terrain. Doesn't mean you might not see the tiger before I do, but I sure know how to watch for a lot of different signs. All right. I'm going to see if there's anything else. There is not now. I'm going to take a break and come back and do readings, and they're going to be pretty cool. I challenge you. Go out there and find somebody else doing this. Find it. I want to know who they are and where they are. Ultimately, I'd love to connect with them, but I'm present in the fact of how rare this is. Your donations are appreciated. So he wants me to make something clear. In many ways, I'm able to show you a maturity that does not reflect how I learned it. I have repeatedly begged to go deeper, to get more, to see more. I still do. Over the course of this question and answer session, I was pressing for more frequently, and he said no. He's here saying no to me frequently because he maintains me within limits where my consciousness can feel really, pretty stable. And ultimately, I function more as a spiritual base camp than may be clear to you yet. Eventually, I'm going to be retiring as the mayor of a spiritual base camp, in a sense, or even a wise elder in a spiritual base camp, where I'm just not the one going out on foraging trips in all different directions. It's like, it's a depth that is extreme for many, and it will be extreme for quite a while, decades even. And yet, ultimately, he is most interested in the element whereby many of you can be trained to do things that I have no awareness of or relevance to. The gifts, the guidance that he's given me to share through Wildflowerfire, through the wild flowing fire that's active, is all about how to activate and keep this energy stable. And this is what I do. And I have all sorts of awareness of how to survive in this ecosystem, in this place. And we're building a space with deeper roots and stronger walls and better fireplaces. Ultimately, he's very excited for many of you to bring you to life in unique ways. And he wants you to really trust that it's not about following exactly the paths I've trod. It's about being present here, learning the things you need with us, and then being open to the unique guidance and service that you are being asked to do, which in many cases will bring you past the edges that I, Daniel, understand. And he wants you to understand yourself this way right now. There is an awakening happening that is well beyond the limits of what many people have embraced. To the extent that you understand spiritual reality through the sages and prophets of the past, you misunderstand what is possible. It is one thing to embody as a saint, channeling divine energy into the presence of a culture that will not transform soon. Saint Francis. It is another to be a part of a transformation in which millions of people are embodying the same frequencies that were once occupied by lone individuals. The mechanics of this transformation are extremely different. So on the one level, yes, you must understand yourself as equivalent to Jesus. On another, it is vastly different to embody Christ consciousness when millions of other people are doing so. So embrace the extreme and trust the company. Embrace and recognize that it is appropriate to use the mechanisms of the culture you live within. It does not make you less spiritual to use the internet to reach other people who are like you. It does not make you less spiritual to commit to learning the lesson of receiving messages by text and not reading them until you are ready. This is the same kind of lesson that you embrace in order to navigate telepathic spiritual connections. You recognize that someone wants to connect to you and you say, not yet. I'm not in harmony. I need to eat now. A challenge that you need to understand before you embrace it is that you will be sitting at dinner with your loved ones and someone will knock on your door and say hi. And you need to say, wait, I'm eating. You practice for that challenge with this. Practice. Don't pick this up when you don't need it. Pick it up intentionally. Do what you need to do and put it down. How much of your time on this is spent paying attention to things that you don't want to pay attention to? Learn to use it and put it down. It is neither good nor bad. It is a mechanism that enables you to amplify your focus. So in times of peace, pursue your practice. Align your spiritual tree Your vertical attunes the chakras, the key ring, heart, crown, throat, sacral, nose tip, solar plexus, diamond eye, lungs, root, chin, navel, third eye, heart. If you can't do it that fast, get to practicing. You're not going to learn it unless you commit to it. In the Wildflowerfire space, Elora and Marissa have made a collaboration 5 times through repeating that cycle with music. It's awesome. We got to get you to it. It's there. It's there. Come explore, find it out, help yourself get it in. Because as you retune to this, you know you can cleanse yourself. As you cleanse yourself and focus, you spend several minutes at the end of a practice saying what matters. What matters that comes into your consciousness after a practice is in tune with your practice. Then you do that. You let it reach into the rest of your day, and that becomes your commitment. And then you start to watch what infringes on this commitment. Say no to that. It's depressing at first to recognize how much of your time is just being pushed around by things that ultimately aren't core. But it's so liberating to learn that these simple 20-minute practices with several minutes of meditation at the end can put you in a position where you can clearly discern what's right for you, what's core to you, and put it into your life. That's ultimately what this is for. We will exist one day without these, where you simply tune in to the vast ranges of knowledge that are possible, because you have the ability to navigate psychic spiritual connection. You have the ability to work with the magnetisms that are required to connect and release connection. You have the ability to come close and stay at this level without doing this. And as a result, you'll be able to tap into universal layers of knowledge and simply learn and know. You'll be able to reach out and connect to other people you love and be present with them like this, because you know you can release that connection also when it's time. You need to develop these maturities, and this phase of his story is about using this thing to say yes and no. It's one of the most crucial spiritual lessons. It is deep spiritual class. It's with you every day, and every single time you use these forms of connection, let yourself remain aware that you are practicing for deeper connections. And as you get good at it, you will be liberated to experience that more and more in your daily life. And until you get good at it, don't feel sad that it's not working yet. Get to work. Get to work. Practice. All right. Elora. You have been restrained because you have too much of an affinity with the urge for burning too bright, burning too strong. It's a very simple lesson. If you burn the whole wood pile down, you don't have wood for tomorrow. The discipline to appreciate 3 logs for 3 hours. That's what you need the most. Too much boom and bust energy. Looking at the navel, can't say enough. Can't say enough. Focus in the navel. Build the fire here. There's a fire within. It exists. It is most accessible within the navel. This is where you can process the worst feelings with the greatest ease. A huge emphasis on centering here. I can't say this enough. That core yoga practice is really good so often. When I invite someone to in a reading, there's a particular pattern that says it works. It's good for you. And it's good for you, Alora. Navel, core, build it. You're pretty clear there. Your fire's strong enough there that there's nothing toxic. And you can burn away anything that does come. Already, you don't need a stronger fire for it to work. Not in the world. Like, you don't need decibels and loud music and everything all around you for it to work. You need right here, just center in your core, center in your core, center in your core. And there's a natural aversion to feeling so vividly because feeling has often been a place of pain. And whenever pain has been present as a normal, it's difficult to convince your body. Really, it's difficult to convince your body to do the movement and to feel more. Because some part of your mind is like, why would I want to feel that again? You can do these. Keep it clear. You want to do that again because you have a much better chance. It's more than a chance. You have a much better potential to keep it clear now. Do this work. Stay centered in your core. Trust that when negative feelings come up, you can learn how to burn them and turn them into something that's healthy for you. You're that much stronger than you used to be already. Keep it burning. That's it. Thank you, Shannon. I saw several others above. Thank you. I'm just not going back. Erica. Aha. There's a part of you that volunteered for this. You knew what you were getting into. You need to reconnect with that part of yourself. You need to reconnect with the part of yourself that took on this challenge as it was. Imagine diving in to a deeper space and there aren't many people there and you're choosing to, and you're knowing full well that you need to learn a range of lessons in order to survive in these depths. And you are being given, I'm seeing like an overview. You're being given an array of insight into what it will take. And you're saying, yes, you said yes. You need to get back into that space and own it because you've been disempowered by how challenging this has been. You've been almost frozen at times by how daunting the intensity of these challenges and the many forms of change you've had to go through. You need to get back into that space where you said, I could do this, because you have done this. Now you need to wake up into what you've already done so you can bring together what you've learned. It's all in your third eye. It's all in how you see it. It's all in allowing your perception to embrace the range of the choice you made. You have to be in the space that knew that it would be this challenging and said, yes, I can do this. Center in that. Allow younger self to just be there and say, hey, guess what? Stop whining. You did it. Say that to yourself. You did it. You chose it. You did it. You succeeded. You're not giving yourself the joy in having succeeded. That's why you're not getting further. That's why you're not coming to life more. That's why some things aren't working, because you're not appreciating yourself for it. You're still sort of saying, that was stupid. That was crazy. I don't want to make a mistake like that again. You don't need to. You already know how to swim. You don't need to learn again. Swim. It's enough. Gene. You have the potential to be more. You have a certain amount of strength within you that needs to be challenged. You are too accustomed to wasting it by essentially taking on people. You're too accustomed to wasting it by taking people on in a time in a way that they're not ready to hear. So you're like pressing people to change when the manner in which you're pressing them just makes them resist you. They kind of appreciate it because they like feeling your strength and they like knowing themselves in relation to your strength. But it's also sort of wasteful because it's poorly timed. Ultimately, you need to value yourself more. Value your own comfort more. There's some part of you that thinks it's noble to suffer almost. Like, I'll put up with it. That was necessary to get through the challenges you've been through, but now have higher standards. No, you're not going to waste time on someone who's not willing to do more work. You need that attitude more than anything, and you need it in here. It's about your boundaries. When do you assert your effort? When do you commit to a project and not? And people or projects, when do you commit to driving someone, pushing them, inspiring them? Sometimes less is more. Misty. That's so beautiful. All right. Misty needs a party. All right, people. Misty has done an enormous amount of work already, and she did this huge amount of work, and she's cleared a really great space. She's like dug out a whole foundation for a really awesome new space. And then she looked around her, and it's like nobody fucking noticed. And she's like, people, I just cleaned up an enormous mess. I cleared all this space, and like none of you, everybody around her is just like they just don't get it. And she knows full well she did a lot of work that really benefited a lot of people, and they're not even saying thank you. They're not even they're just going about their business. And she needs us to say, yes, good job. That's awesome. It's in your heart. And I'm emphasizing that, but it's been really hard, Misty. And I'm so sorry. You've been processing negative energy for people, and they've been dumping it on you. They haven't been sorry, and they haven't been saying thank you. And you've worked your way through an extraordinary phase, and you deserve appreciation. And you're not going to get it from all the people that you deserve it from yet. But like, feel it from me. Feel it from us. Thank you for being you. Thank you for doing what you've done. Ultimately, these idiots gave you all their compost, and you're the only one with a new kind of soil right now. So it's going to take them a while to figure it out. And in the meantime, you have a particularly unique wealth, and it has composted, and you do have these. And spiritually, you now have the ability to say, you're not going to dump this on my door. You're going to put this in the pile. You need these in relation to the people around you. You need a discipline that translates into saying, yes, I've taken your shit for years. I actually know how to use it. You're going to put it in the pile. You're going to do it with respect. And you're going to do it when I say. You're not going to wake me up in the middle of the night. You're not going to be rude to me. You're not going to expect a different kind of treatment from me. You're going to say, thank you. I'm doing work you don't know how to do. They're not going to understand it. Don't try to explain it. Don't imagine they're going to get it in a year. They're not. Almost all of them. But you can navigate the yes and no, the when and how, the that was rude, I'm not talking to you for a while. You need to put a priority on that. And get the appreciation from us. They're not going to be able to give it to you yet. Aldi. So I see, wow, there's a sadness in Haldi that I really want to honor. You were trying to win with other people and you ended up beating them in a way. And it wasn't what you were trying to do. And I want you to know that I see that. You were not trying to win over, against. You were trying to win with some people and they fell by the wayside. And basically what you need to understand is they essentially said, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to go deeper. You didn't do anything wrong. You just said, I want to stick with it. I want to go deeper. They wanted out. You didn't win at their expense as if they failed. They basically said, I believe in you. Keep going. But they said it in a way that they don't remember. And there's a real sadness in that. And I see a sadness in you that like you lost some camaraderie that you used to have. And you haven't stopped looking back at that. And as a result, you haven't turned around and fully embraced what's possible now. And I say this with ice. I say it and I feel it as I say it. We can hold something with you that you used to want to create with others. Allow the old ways, allow the old phases of your life to fully die and grieve them. You don't have to feel this undercurrent of guilt. You really were aiming to win with them, and that's why you ended up here, so you can win with us. It's in your heart. It's in your heart. There's this guilt energy. You don't need to feel it. You were making a prayer, and it's just being given to you in a form that you didn't recognize. Welcome home. Janie. You would be a great boss. And you haven't thought about yourself this way, but I want you to think about what would happen if you hired 5 people and you were in charge and you told them what to do and they did it. You need to cultivate this in your navel. You need to think of yourself as someone like that. What if you had an idea that depended on 5 people helping you create it and you needed to tell them what to do and they were perfectly happy about it? You were drawing in enough income to pay them. Everybody's happy. They think you're great. You need to think of yourself this way in your navel, period. You need to practice imagining from this perspective. You don't do this yet, right? Like, I think I'm reading you correctly. Like, you're not currently the boss of people. I'd love it if you told us. And if I'm totally off, I want to know, but I'm missing something. What am I missing, Janie? Yeah. You need to imagine yourself as the boss. What is it, Janie? Oh, I know what I'm missing. I want to challenge you to say it either now or better yet, come to the Wildflowerfire space. And I'm putting you on the spot on purpose because we have access to this and I don't want it to slip away. If you were the boss, what would you be doing, Janie? What is it? I do want you to tell us now. And if you don't know the answer, I want to invite you to the Wildflowerfire space to answer there. You need to think like it. You need to speak like it. But first, you need to know yourself as this. The core yoga, you could do the core yoga practice 3 times a week. Not every day, every other day. You could do it 3 times a week and you would live a better life, I promise you. You could do the standing flower one day and the core the other day. And if you didn't do anything else, your life would totally fucking change in 3 weeks if you did that. 1 day off a week. Yeah, all right, Janie, come visit. Join us, all right? I invite you to the Wildflowerfire space. Come talk more. Think about it this week and see anything more, even a minute, okay? A minute. Christopher. So you are inhibited by, you have an idea of magic. And it's too much through like a wizard and a magic wand kind of energy. And it's sort of like you're stuck there. And you need to reclaim your ability to recognize magic. I want you to really hold this. Magic begins with vibrational attunement. So by attuning yourself to the vibration of what you want to create, you generate a seed of that creation. And this is magic. When it becomes normal, it doesn't feel the same as this wizard hat thing, magic wand. There are mechanics within what's happening that you can learn to understand, and they're relatively simple, but you've inhibited yourself from learning them, and it's time that you do. There's a fear in it that is unnatural, and it's not yours. It's cultural baggage, and it's particularly strong in you. You've inherited a fear that says, don't go that way, don't learn that. Looks like it's of herbs too. Don't go that way, don't learn that. It's not yours. You need to identify that you're holding this inhibition against going into these directions, and it's not yours. You need to reject it because it's preventing you from doing what you need to do. This is third eye stuff. It's in your mind. It's how you're holding your vision of your future, because you're making prayers on one level that necessitate you learning what amounts to magic. And then something in you is sabotaging it, because it's like you're asking unwittingly to enter realms of existence, ways of being, vibrational spaces that are like, something's calling that the devil in your experience. And you have to honestly identify it and say, you have to take a firmer stance to be like, dude, like, don't give me that baggage. The Spanish Inquisition is not welcome in your home, Christopher. Third eye stuff. You could spend a lot of time cleansing your third eye, doing eagle poses, going down to crow, coming up. You could do that, and it would be very good for you this week. You're almost already saying you're not going to, and I really invite you to consider it. Third eye exercises at the end of every meditation. You could just skip to the end and do the last minute or 2 minutes and build that into your life this week. See how it functions. It really takes 3 weeks to get in there thoroughly, but try it for a week and see what happens. Emilda. People are making me laugh this week. All right. You do have the desire to I'm getting a cartoon image of you like bopping people on the head. Like, you are effectively impatient with people around you, and it really does, it works a lot. Like, you effectively like you may over rely on it a little bit, though. You have another version of this, like, you need to more highly value your time and your energy. Like, don't let yourself get bent out of shape for other people. You want to prioritize like feeling joyful. And if people are kind of like trampling on your flower garden, so to speak, don't immediately recenter on them and give them a ton of attention. Like, make them do more of the work. Make people reach for it. I'm seeing your crown. I'm going to invite you to tune into your crown, Emilda. It's a big deal to let your spirit feel this divine connection. It's like a link between you and divine love. And to let yourself feel it more intensely has an ongoing impact. It's one of the most profound ways you can keep yourself changed. And I'm sensing that this is a real chance for you to transition into a deeper mode of leadership and presence for your family and your community. Own that you don't know your limits. Now isn't a time to aim for specific goals in this regard, because now is a time to melt your past sense. You've been so consistently beyond people around you that you've actually lived within too narrow limits. This is a time for you to sort of stare into the unknown and go, wow, I wonder what's possible. I invite you to feel this coming in through your crown. Breathe with your crown. Spirit breath is really special. It's 1 minute. I'm going to invite you. I invite you all to tune into yourself for 1 minute now. Hey Siri, set the timer for 1 minute.
1 minute. Counting down.
Begin to breathe in harmony with your crown. A subtle, held breath creates the opportunity to feel resonance here. As the feeling tunes in, imagine light coming down into your crown. A rainbow of color present here, creating more space. And allow the breath to follow the rhythm of feeling, and allow the feeling to expand and bring you into a subtle harmony with divine energy that is beyond yourself. And trust this. Allow yourself to feel a trust that is present. Feel a trust that is present. Feel a trust that is present. And let it be. Spirit breath is magnificent. 1 minute of this. The priority is you basically stop breathing for a moment and you allow yourself to feel a subtle resonance that is difficult to be aware of all the time. Your crown is often difficult to be aware of. So by committing to this pause, you tune in and you feel feeling, and you're breathing in a way that doesn't jostle this awareness. And that often means you're not breathing deep at first. Never presume that a deep breath is always better. It's better when you're in tune with the right vibrations, but if you're bashing a deep breath into a space that was, out of tune, yes, you'll get more spirit and oxygen in, but you're not reconciling the lack of attunement. When you stay committed to feeling any sensation, and the crown is a good place to begin, you stay committed to feeling it and you breathe in a way that maintains this awareness. First, it means I'm breathing out very tight. I can tell if I push air out faster, I'm going to lose my awareness. Then I breathe in with strength, but slow. And I can tell you get good at it. This is a skill. You can tell how much you can draw breath in while still maintaining that awareness and the sensation here. It's a skill. But the commitment to practice it for 1 minute every once in a while, very profound. And when the window opens to work with your crown, there's nowhere you can work in your spirit that's going to have a more lasting impact. Because as you transform the vibrations here, you transform with the vibrations here. And it's like setting a new harmony that lasts. Bless you, Emily. All right. Who else? Word. Yes, Kinsey. You are stubborn and rude to yourself. You're addicted to the sense that your strength is the solution to too many problems. Your lack of vulnerability is a problem. I invite you to recenter on a sense that your sacral needs attention. Sacral chakra is about intimacy, and it means into me see. I just watched someone else make a video that I could have made myself. What's his name? I appreciate him. It's a little annoying, but I wish I didn't even qualify it. He's a kind of business guru, and he talks about Navy SEALs, and it talks about how the Navy SEALs choose they choose people. They don't always choose the strongest or the brightest or the fastest. They choose people who are extremely skilled and very loyal and know how to value each other. And he said, the single most important lesson that I've learned is how to ask for and receive help. Now I'm cheating because I know this challenge with you. And I am putting you on the spot because you're holding it in a way that I hope everyone can hear. I once learned an incredible lesson. It was at a time when I was just learning to tune into feeling energy. And I went on a trip with my family into the Appalachian Mountains. And we went to a bookstore, and it was a big, beautiful bookstore. And I was learning to feel resonance, and I was going around and I was holding a book, and I could tell if the book was in tune with me or not. And I ended up choosing 4 books this way. It was thoroughly exciting. And one of them was this old used book called Kundalini. It was written by a rogue yogi from India, and it was amazing. And he had received spiritual inspiration to try a new technique, and he tried it every day, and he did it again and again for years. And he blew open his consciousness. And when he blew open his consciousness, he was in extraordinary pain. And it took him a while to recenter. And when he recentered, he ended up teaching this process and the process of how to reground once you evoke it. Well, naturally, I read this and I said, I'll try. And I did it, and I did it, and I did it, and it worked. And I blasted my consciousness into the stratosphere, but his recentering process didn't work. And after 5 days, I committed to I was going to live in my basement. I was young. And I would like hold a mango for 4 hours and then eat it. It was like, and I had cherished the mango, but I was so out there. Everything I tried was extreme. And finally I admitted I was scared. It took me so long to admit I was scared. I was trying to outrun the fear, out-strength the fear, out-trust the fear, out-hope the fear. Finally, I was like, fuck, I'm scared. And I remembered a woman who had given me Reiki during a yoga retreat, my first yoga retreat. And I called her. And when I asked for help, I cried. And when I cried, I came back into focus. When I came back into focus, she gave me some guidance, and I followed the guidance. And it was steps I could take that extended her presence with me over the course of the next several days. And she did what I'm doing. She knew how to read me from afar, and it was astounding. I was like daunted by this, that she could read me, that she could connect with me from a distance and know intuitively what I needed. She had me get B vitamins, and I hadn't been eating meat for 2 years or a year, and I was scared and overwhelmed, and I wasn't giving myself proper nutrition. But she knew how to hold me most when I needed help. And she was able to invite me to a Reiki retreat. And I did the retreat with her, and she calmly and maturely communicated to me, humbly communicated to me, that the most important thing was something I did. It was, I said, "Will you please help?" And she was honored that I'd asked her for that help. It's a gift to be able to be present for strong, amazing, beautiful, wild people who are too stubborn to ask for help when they need it, just so you all know. Heart. And then there's a theme that I want to talk about at the end before we're done, even though, so. Shannon. You do have an energy of like you're learning to use the gas pedal, and you still like the gas pedal a little too, like you're you need to value that a car needs a gas and a brake pedal spiritually. And you have been held back so much in your life that you have actually over relied on the baggage. So imagine if you're moving with 50 pounds on your back, it takes a much greater force to move than when you put that 50 pounds down. You are entering a phase in your life where you're not going to be held back as much. So it's important that you understand that you're much more powerful than you think. And you haven't learned to catch your self-identity up with the truth. You're pissed at the people who have held you back, and you need to make a transition to say, "Thank you for teaching me to be so strong." You wouldn't be so strong if you hadn't had to resist them so much. They don't get to be you. They don't get to thrive and feel and grow and flower and flourish in the ways you are and will. So perhaps you can forgive them. I invite you to focus on your heart in this way. Forgive the people who held you back. Forgive them, because ultimately they didn't want you to leave. They wanted your company. They didn't even understand what was happening, but they weren't capable of going where you are going to go. Forgive them for holding you back, because ultimately it is because they wanted you. But man, that felt suffocating as hell. You didn't make a mistake. You needed to say no to that with your whole self. That was not the right way for you. This is in your heart. You've got guilt and anger, and you're bouncing between justifying your choices and feeling guilty about your choices. And you need to be at peace with your choices. Forgive them. Forgive yourself. And turn around to realize what you've already done, because you're much stronger than you know yourself to be already. And you need to really, really like it. You need to feel your strength and like learn to recognize that you have a new kind of challenge. You're too strong for a lot of people. That means subtlety. Imagine a giant learning to pick a flower without crushing it. You have challenges like this that you need to focus on, because you have strength like this that you're going to get to lift the boulders. But you have to be at peace with the fact that the other side of that challenge is to pick that flower without crushing it. Heal with your heart first. This guilt and anger, you can leave it behind. It's intense. And I have to tell you this, I definitely encourage you to consider visiting the space and sharing with us about it, because this could be really strong and you may need to share and receive some support on it. Good job. Good job. Thank you. You are welcome. Much love. All right. I want to tell you all about a dynamic that I think matters to all of you. And this is not the kind of dynamic that I want to lead with. So you all had to earn it to be here, right? Karmic patterns suck. Karmic patterns fracture life in unnatural ways. So basically, little subworlds of possibility get created karmically that no one really wants to be a part of. And the only reason they happen is to break things down. It's like energetic composting. But ultimately, you don't want to stay there. And unfortunately, it's possible to write stories as if you want to stay there. For instance, Lord of the Rings. In reality, once Aragorn wins his little battle and becomes king, he's got PTSD and screams at his kids. It's not an honest reflection of the world. And if you dream of being Aragorn, this warrior king hero, you fail to understand that that warrior king hero only exists in a world with terrible monsters. You don't want to emphasize becoming something that depends on a world full of monsters. You want to pray to live in a world beyond such karma and then cold-heartedly, neutrally do exactly what it takes to cleanse things that need to be stopped. Because monsters are ultimately wounded. Monsters are ultimately creatures that were once loving divine beings that got lost. And yes, they exist. There are beings that seek to hurt others. They seek to hurt others to alleviate their own pain and suffering. It's awful. But if you invest in a karmic cycle that celebrates victory over them, that longs for victory on them, that defends your right to carry a concealed weapon because you're constantly imagining a mugger attacking you, you're going to fucking attract a mugger to attack you. You will attract that. Don't invest in karmic patterns. Don't dream of being a character in a karmic pattern. How do you know? Dream of being a character in a loving world only. Really, only. So think of it this way. If someone threatened you, if someone threatened someone else with a knife and you grab their hand, take the knife and stab them, is that a hero? Wouldn't it be more heroic to catch their attention, look them in the eyes, and remind them that they're not someone who wants to hurt, and have them put down the knife and cry? Why do we live in a culture where the first is considered more heroic than the second? Why do we live in a culture where hundreds of movies exist that extol the first, and when's the last time you saw the second in anything other than like an after-school special? Our priorities are out of whack. Okay. Here's what I want to actually teach you today. You are most likely someone who does believe in the second more than the first. The problem is you don't necessarily know how to see it through. So one of the key things that people do is coming out of a karmic pain. You actually do love the other person. You've experienced painful karma with people you love, and they've hurt you. And I'm here to witness that they have likely hurt you more than you've hurt them. I see this in you. It's real. I know it's true. And something you did was you basically held that pain within yourself. And you held it so tightly that in a way you convinced them to stop trying, and they gave up. And they actually left their ability to be that strong because they just did. And you were left with the intensity in your body. This is the urge to hurt yourself. The urge to hurt yourself is when you grabbed the whole karmic story and you said, I'm going to hold this within me. And you got all the roles going. Someone hurt you and you loved them anyway. And it's like hugging a kid who's scratching you and hitting you. And it's happening inside your body. And you held the whole thing. So inside you, you have something volatile and even violent. And to come to terms with it, you need to understand it where it started in this life. I invite you under these circumstances to think about healing in your sacral. Think about healing in the memories of the one-on-one relationships that you've had, in which you've done your best to outlove pain, in which you've done your best to outlove trauma. I know you as someone who's done these. I know you as someone who's done your best to love in situations where it didn't last. And the best way you knew how to love was not to hate. You wrestled with yourself not to resent them, not to become someone who fought back when it wasn't right. In fact, you didn't even fight back quite enough to say no properly. And I know this about you. And you do need to get into your memories and realize that you didn't say no in a cold and present enough way to say, this isn't going to work. I can't stay with you. I can't keep living like this. This hurts too much. This isn't right. Get into your memories and honor that. It's in your sacral. It needs healing. And we can identify the urge to hurt ourselves, the urge to sabotage things in our lives, as a sign that this kind of woundedness needs to heal within. As a key warning bell that says, take a moment, breathe, pause what you're doing, and give yourself some compassion right now. You're not failing because you have a dysfunction in your life. It's just a reminder that you need this love with you. You need an opportunity now to breathe, to care for yourself. And you need more than you've been granting. You haven't been honest with the fact that your strength is extreme, but you're still too tired. You're still losing too much to this inner frustration and turmoil. You need higher standards of what it feels like day to day. You need to stop saying it's okay, you can put up with it. You need to stop saying, all right, I'm strong again. You're not strong enough. You need higher standards of how much you can rejuvenate, of how much better life can feel. And trust that you can continue to pray for the other people in your life. That agreeing to suffer for others was the best way you knew how to respond to dysfunctional circumstances you've been through. But it's not the best way now. Now, bring it up. Pray for more. Know that if you can draw better boundaries, eventually, even the people who crash into those boundaries and hurt their head, they're going to learn to be more mature also. So don't keep helping them avoid immediate suffering. Don't keep avoiding the discomfort you feel drawing boundaries that are unpleasant in the middle of a dynamic that's habitual, because it's a dysfunctional dynamic and you know it. And I'm talking to too many of you. Too many of you. You need to set the standard. You can't keep saying you're okay when you're not okay, because the world's not going to help you change as much as it would otherwise. This is part of the law of attraction. The law of attraction says you make walls where you make walls. This is part of your freedom to create. This is part of your autonomy. You were granted the right to try to make life work the way it's working. And when you set that wall, life's not just going to take that away from you. That would be removing your autonomy in a very unpleasant way. You need to be the one that says, hey, I'm still too tense. This is not enough. Yeah, I know you could still do your day. Yeah, I know you could still do all that work, but it's not good enough. You're not happy enough. I want you to be happier. I, Daniel, this Wildflowerfire guy, am here saying, I want you to be happier. I know. I just looked at one person's name. I know. Two, I know that you are suffering too much. Trust that it can be much better and that together we can help each other make it so. I think I want one of those too, Miss Kinsey. Thank you all. Thank you all. Yesterday, I recorded significant parts of 4 projects. I really want to thank Elora and Miguel for diving in. They're taking it to the next level. I'm paying them more. And partly that's because there's a little more money coming in and they're helping a lot more, taking on a huge range of things. And it's really thrilling. We're sending out a mailing to invite you to the yoga channel. I really encourage you to. Wild Chakra Yoga, listed in the description. Please come visit, try out the core yoga. There's a lot going on. Thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in us. Much love. Much love. Be with you and your family.